But maybe I would first ask Dalton, what was the outstanding statistic for you in the just recently released detailed report of the National Population and Housing Census 2024? What was the outstanding figure for you?
Why do you refuse me to stage my preamble?
Okay, do your preamble and tell us
my
your
preamble
statistics.
is, when people question. For instance, someone told me about northern Uganda, and I looked at the numbers.
Yeah.
It did not grow much. And we're talking about that northern Uganda, in terms of their population, and this can be explained by the experts, that they did not grow despite the tranquility that they've enjoyed, the peace and everything that they've enjoyed. Those are things that people may take for granted, but they are big questions that need to be addressed.
Or they decided to move here before census night, and they were counted as part of the, was it 2.5 million daytime population of Kampala?
The whole group.
Anyway, we are not experts in this. Let's get to speak to Mr. Rumazi, who will be letting us in. It's a pleasure having you, and thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you very much, Mildred. I'm glad to be here and to be part of this show.
I will start before Dalton asks any question by asking the same I asked to him. What were your most peculiar, outstanding statistics out of the population census, both positive or negative, or questionable, whichever way?
Actually, this population and housing census, it may be questionable, but based on the statistics that came out in the final report, when we look at just the actuaries and the Bagishu, that is like a big question.
The numbers
Why did they drop?
Okay.
That's the big question, and which can only be answered demographically.
And if I could just go back, Bagisu actually dropped in 2014 were 2,390,975. And as of 2024, there are 2,096,149. And you also talked about Bagishu. Those are Bagishu.
Yes.
And the actual is dropped from 2.131 million to 1.9 million. Maybe they've just not engaged in procreation that much.
There is a saying that goes that 10 people cannot be in the same place for 10 years. And we are looking at census which comes after 10 years. So we believe that there are dynamics whereby people have to shift or to move from one place to another. But there is something that really shocks people, that if the population growth rate of Uganda was 3% according to 2014, and right now they have said it has dropped slightly to 2.9, but there must be an increase, even if there is crude death rate and crude birth rate. When you join them together, you know that birth usually exceeds death. So there must be an increment. So if there is a drop in a population after 10 years, of course people are right to ask questions. And these questions they are asking, they can only be answered demographically, whereby we look at people who shift from one place to another and people who sometimes do not declare their ethnicity.
So when people migrate from one place to another, they don't lose their identity, do they?
It depends on what is on the ground. You remember, like when we had a time when people said that Tamburango Muganda. At that time, everyone wanted to be a Muganda. But mentioning that you are problem Nyankole, Muchigai, whatever, it was very hard. So you wanted to be a Muganda. Maybe that's the reason we see the demographics are changing. And many people are claiming to be Baganda, and we have many tribes.
And remembering probably that this is a yes or no, are you which tribe do you belong to? I mentioned whichever. And as an enumerator, I don't have to question. Is that what you're trying to say? That probably it's because of the answers that are given by the people?
Yes. Because the population grew from 34 million people to 45, it means that population grew steadily. And now when you see only those two ethnicities, like the Bagishu, the Bamasaba, and the Acholis. Probably the other tribes that dropped, like the Japadoras, they are not mentioned in the list, but they are just put among others.
Other tribes,
and yet, those which we put under others are the minorities, meaning that they also dropped much as we don't have their particular information.
Maybe you help us. Tell us about the methodology that was employed, and this is back to what Mildred says when I ask, are you this, and you say, I'm Uganda or not. Maybe that is on the surface of it. What methodology did you employ to ensure that you get these people right?
That question was not very direct, but they looked at like your background. They would look at your generation, where you came from. But what happens, it is my responsibility as an enumerator to capture what they have asked. But again, the people who are answering, there are even people who decided not to answer.
Yeah, true.
They decided not to participate in the census. We even have those who boycotted the census. So now there, you can't make a decision and say, let me put this person because I know he's a Muchiga, let me label him as a Muchiga. If he adamantly refuses to tell you his background, you can't go ahead and say it. So what happens, these enumerators were using, like we call it real-time data, because everything you said, they were entering it in the system. Whereby even if someone talked of something different, and you go down and find that someone has made a mistake, it was hard for him to come back and edit it. Because I saw some young men, because they were hurrying and they wanted to run and finish the number of households you have to cover in a day. But having had the census for only 10 days was also another challenge.
And there was a bit of an extension.
There was an extension.
There was
Yeah.
an extension.
Yeah, there was a small extension, but of course these people, they needed more time.
How much time essentially do you think a census, an enumeration exercise for a country like Uganda would take?
It would take the 10 days with a number of enumerators. If there are many, they can cover as many households as they can. So the 10 days were enough. But we realized that there was a challenge of some inaccessibility of some places, and therefore enumerators were a little bit few, and they had to move long distances to go and carry out their activities.
Okay.
So,
so this the misrepresentation as voiced by different people, different tribal settings, you are not going just to wish it away. And the question for me is, Mildred, if you remember, there was a strike among the enumerators, yes? And this during the exercise. How do you qualify that you cleaned up this data wasn't messed up, there was a proper cleanup of this data so that you got the right data that you're putting across?
That's why we say they were using real data. So whichever
and especially
was,
as a demographer, you're speaking in that context.
Yes, I'm speaking as a demographer. Of course, there are errors in the data. Every data set has errors, so it has to be cleaned. In the process of data computerization and analysis, it has to be cleaned. You would see there are some flows that are not, like it is not flowing, data is not flowing. Like somewhere up, you asked how many number of children do you have? And then you said, I have 3. And then when you go down to ask you of the respective ages, you can't mention them. So you realize that maybe you are trying to cook the data because it is not adding up. But ideally, I'm not here to defend the methods that were used, but I'm here to tell people out there that it can be possible. That some of these drops and ups, it can be possible as long as it is after a period of 10 years.
10 years, okay.
10 years.